listeners. Friday, November 8th, 2024. It's been a crazy week for some of us here in the States. That includes me and Marcus. Hope you guys are all doing well. Welcome. Today we're going to be speaking about applicant tracking systems, and then also basically just how to get in front of a hiring manager. And to do that, we brought on Marcus Webster, who joined us, I don't know, it's got to be 5-6 months ago now, Marcus, that you were here. Is that about right?
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
So while we're letting people stream in and getting everything set up, why don't you give us a little bit of background on yourself, Marcus, and let everybody know who you are.
Hi, I'm as you said, I'm Marcus Webster. I'm a recruiter that specializes in the embedded space. Brandon and I have known each other for quite a while, so we've crossed paths quite a bit, and are collaborating on working within the embedded space. And so we specialize in recruiting in North America and Europe primarily. We help a lot of European companies come to the U.S., help a lot of U.S. companies go to Europe. But we basically are recruiting anything embedded. So we specialize in helping small companies grow. So we'll do sales, marketing, engineering, product management, program management. So whatever the customer needs, as long as it's in the embedded space. And our value add is that we speak your language. We speak the language of everyone in our community, and we know how really well connected in the industry, and know how to speak to problems and solutions that we've seen in the past working with other customers.
Cool. Let's see who else is on the platform right now. Oh, it's just me. I wonder where Zach and Amesh and Marvin and all those guys are. Well, Ming,
Zach's saying hello. So.
Oh, he's in there. Is he locked out again? I don't think Zach's learned how to use the tool yet.
I don't like the tool.
What's up, Zach?
Hey everyone. Hi everyone.
Hey.
I'm Zach. I'm here. Yeah. And yeah. So,
hey, so Zach.
I'll go there. That's great.
When you're learning a new platform, how long does it normally take you to understand how to log in, Zach?
When I'm learning how to program,
that was a joke.
And go quickly.
I was giving you a hard time before you logged in. Do you, Ming and Zach, want to introduce yourselves or say hi to everybody?
If I go first, hi, I'm Ming. I've been a Linux and Unix consultant for over 30 years now. And in the embedded space for 15. And over that entire time playing around in the industry, I've been both hired and the person hiring. So having seen it from both sides, just give a little bit more perspective on things as well.
I didn't know you were the hand of God sometimes, Ming.
Yeah, I've set up entire teams and employed people.
So be extra nice to Ming, because he may hold the key to your future. Zach, you want to go next?
Yep. Hey everyone, I'm Zach, and I've been a software engineer for close to 16 years now. And in that time, I've worked all the way from mobile development, web development, and for the last 4 years, I've basically focused on embedded development. And I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to see Marcus again. So it's been a while.
Yeah, good to see you.
Were you here on the last one, Zach?
I wasn't, but I've had the privilege. Marcus is very welcoming to questions. And I asked Marcus a question on LinkedIn, and he gave me time and advised me on my CV and how to present myself. I'm going to say that.
Great. Well, I didn't know that you guys had connected. So, that's the power of the community, right? Well, I'm glad that you guys were able to get together. Let's see. So for everybody out there in the audience, if you want to join, we'd welcome you to jump on. I'm going to start sending out invites for those of you in the audience right now. If you want to get on stage so you can talk, ask questions. We want this to be an interactive session. Marcus is great, as Zach just mentioned, at being a resource to you. So if you'd like, get to know him better, get to know all of us better. And then maybe one day Ming won't hire, then immediately fire you when you're on the project, as you'll have a personal connection with them. So feel free to jump on stage and participate. So today by the way, I'm Brandon. I'm Brandon Lewis. I've been a technology journalist. I've been doing this for quite some time, about 15 years. As Marcus said, we've known each other for, I don't know, since the early teens, I guess. Ran into each other at a lot of trade shows and conferences, and then obviously relationship continued since then. Good friend and a great resource, as I mentioned. So I'm happy to be here as part of the DevHeads community, and hopefully all you guys are as well. I do want to mention, sometimes you guys come in through a platform like LinkedIn or other, and we do have a community that's located on Discord. So if you want to go to https://discord.gg/devheads, which I just dropped into the chat here in the platform, you can come hang out and ask technical questions, get answers to things from like Linux pros like Ming, or embedded software and RTOS guys like Zach, and even some pro tips from people like Marcus. So let's see. I think we are about ready to go. And you guys couldn't tell I'm trying to multitask here and buy me some time. Talk amongst yourselves really quickly.
Well, do you want Marvin Tahoe to introduce themselves?
Oh, yeah.
That buys you more time.
Yep, thanks. Marvin, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Marvin. I'm an embedded developer. I've been working in this space for payments for the past 3 years. I'm happy to be here.
Great. And Taha, you're up, dude.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me to be on the speakers board. I'm Taha. I'm from Algeria, and I have a major in computer science, network security, and I've been a full stack developer for over 3 years. Yeah, so I've had my fair share of experience with applying to jobs.
Applying to jobs, great. All right. So I think that bought me just about enough time. I want to thank you guys for bearing with me really quick. All right, Marcus. So let's why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about Webster and Webster and what you guys do, and then I'm going to fire up the slides right now.
All right, you might throw our website in there in the link.
Yep, sure, for sure.
Yeah, so we specialize in recruiting in the embedded space. So we do hardware, software, middleware, OS, AI, ML. So as long as it's embedded, and what's happening, you guys probably see it too, is that everything's converging. So we have clients that are doing embedded, but they're doing also cloud, they're doing AI. So our core is still embedded IoT. So our core is typically wrapped around some kind of real-time operating system with some security somewhere in the mix in terms of SSL, TLS, PKI, encryption, decryption, those kind of things. So so that's kind of our ecosystem where we start and kind of branch off of there. We work with a lot of tools companies who are helping engineers like yourself optimize code, or just make it easier for you to do your development on the software side. But we play up and down the stack. So we do low level board, BSP, bootloader type folks, way up to the OS and above. People who are writing applications that run on top of real-time operating systems for automotive, A&D space, telecom. So we're kind of we're all over the embedded universe basically, but the core is that it has to be embedded. So it's basically engineers in doing C, C++, Rust. Now with AI, it's more Python and JavaScript, depending on the environment. So those are the kind of things that we do. I know it's pretty broad, but it's still very narrow.
For sure. The breadth within embedded. All right. So here we go, fellas and ladies out there. We are about to take it away.
Well, I'd like to kind of hijack for a second, since Zach
Go
and I talked before. So Zach, when we talked, like, what did you learn from our last conversation? If you remember.
Okay, so the first thing was I learned that the way I described myself was very scattered. I was using all the positions that I had occupied previously before to describe who I was as a person who works, and that became. If you read my CV, I think I have a copy of the same one I sent. It became very confusing as to what this resource can do or would do. So I think one of the clearer things was simplifying what I'm projecting to people and being clear of the kind of job and situation I want to end up in. A lot more than that, but that was the main theme of the main theme, I would say.
Okay, good. Because that's one of the main takeaways. I try to make sure everyone tells their story, and that's what I was trying to translate what you just said in terms of how do you tell your story to the audience you want to reach. And I said this before in the previous DevHeads open hours, office hours we did before. It's about creating a story, and I call it marketing material, storyboards, or whatever. But you have to be able to tell your story, and you have to separate yourself from everyone else. And and when we're dealing with ATS, it's different because you're not dealing with a human. Okay, but the goal is to get in front of a human. So you have to still write your resume knowing that you have to be in front of a human, but to get past the ATS, you have to do certain things to make sure that it gets through. Like I said, some of the stuff I talked about before, that you shouldn't have a lot of graphics. You want to keep your resume simple. You want to have it text only, no pictures, no borders. We talked about that in the last DevHeads meeting I did. Keep it simple and make it readable up and down, and have your best stuff on top. Brandon, I can't see that. I'm not sure what I need to do to see the one you have open. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So right now, Marcus, I was just going to issue a poll that was, does everybody know what an applicant tracking system is? I think it's probably worthwhile dropping a definition right now for everybody.
Am I waiting for a response or?
So I'm going to issue a poll, and why don't you go ahead and talk about it, what it is to you.
Okay. So we've all dealt with databases, as of some sort. Now, ATS is just a glorified database of tracking candidates as they come through the system. So like we have an ATS. So if you look at our job, that if you apply through there, it'll take your name and you submit your resume, and then that starts the beginning of the process. Okay, we're different in terms of like when you apply to other jobs, that we actually look at the resume and looking for certain things. A lot of companies, they only go by what your score is. So if especially if you're a large corporation, they don't have time to read everybody's resume. So even then, when I say read, I use that term lightly because we actually skim resumes, but we're looking for the things we're looking for. But when you're applying through an ATS, it takes the information that you give it. So it's like anything else, garbage in, garbage out. and so you have to give them the right information that they're looking for so that you get a higher score. So it'll take your resume, it'll parse the resume. You may have to do some knockout questions before they let you submit a resume or something like that. But it takes that data in, parses it, and gives you a score based on what you have on your questions you may ask and what you have in your resume.
So when you see, like, for example, I don't know how many people have applied for a job on LinkedIn. You see jobs that are posted on LinkedIn and they're like, 15,000 applicants or whatever. There is not a human on the other side as the first line of defense looking through all of those. There's an applicant tracking system that, as Marcus is describing, essentially scans your resume for certain things. So it's looking for, are there keywords in there that we're looking for? Are there specific amounts of experience or things that we can look at in an automated fashion to discard bulk or applications? And really, what that means is that if you've ever been through a system where you submitted a resume or you submitted an application or your resume and you got a rejection email like within minutes, you hit an ATS. So they're not that responsive, right? There's a system there that is automated to help them parse through large numbers of applications. Is that it in a nutshell, Marcus?
Right. And the other thing is what I found out recently is that when you submit on LinkedIn for a particular job, it stays there. It doesn't necessarily mean it gets into the company's ATS. It's in LinkedIn. So if they take that job down, you may not be contacted again later for that job if it opens back up again. So a lot of times it's better to, instead of going through LinkedIn directly, apply to the job directly on the company's website. So that way, at least you're in their system. Okay, because typically they will have a LinkedIn posting and they'll have a posting on their own website. So it's probably better to go directly to the company website to do the posting, just to make sure that you're in their system and you be considered, for future jobs or alternate jobs that you may be a good fit for.
Cool. So this is a diagram that I pulled just from the Googles. It gives you a general sense of how an applicant tracking system work within the context of the application process, and especially from the HR and hiring manager perspective. One thing, Marcus, before we get into some of these best practices, tips and tricks and stuff, is and actually for you, Ming, too, one of the things that I'm always curious about is, especially when we're dealing with some of these technical roles, you have a hiring manager who probably has a pretty good idea of what it is exactly they need. But if you're going to an organization that has an HR, right, or uses an applicant tracking system, here's the downside, right, which is you may be running into a system or a person that doesn't actually speak your language. So like when Zach was talking earlier, he was explaining about, like all the things that he'd done. And it's sort of, everything's relative, right? It depends who the audience is. If I'm telling Ming all about Tyler, Texas, like he's probably like, I'm whatever, right? So it's always interesting to me, how do you dance that dance when you're trying to get to a hiring manager, right? But it's like an adventure, right? There are these different obstacles in your way along there. So what does that look like in terms of how much information you're putting out early on, whether you're dealing with an applicant tracking system or not, Marcus? Like, do you have to refine the information based on, who the audience is?
Yeah, you do. Because I've never been a big believer in making a resume for each job, only because it's so hard to keep track of that, but they have these systems now that can help you keep track of those applications and jobs to kind of match your skills to that particular job. So it is a per job kind of environment, because if you get the right person, the wrong person, if they're only thinking about that one job, that's all they'll think about you for. They won't consider you for anything else. Like, so when people come to me, you know, I'm thinking about all the kind of possibilities that are out there that they can do, as opposed to their HR is trying to fill that one particular job. You know what I mean? And they may, you know, think about other things that may be a good fit for, but they're focusing on that one job and those skills in that particular job. I lost my train of thought. What was the other thing you asked me, Brandon?
Well, just basically, and I want to ask this of Ming too, is how does the hiring manager get involved in a situation where there's HR too, right? Because in here, what's happening is that you're pushing a resume through something. The big problem is what we're trying to accomplish is getting to the hiring manager, right? Getting your application on a hiring manager's desk. So there are obstacles in between. So a lot of times, like we were talking about with Zach, is that he's explaining a lot of things that may not be relevant or understood to the applicant tracking system or to, you know, some HR person who's, you know, in between. So what is the relationship like on the back end? So like Ming, for example, you were talking about how you've hired teams and stuff. You know, who's the counterpart helping with this, you know, this surge of resumes or applications that are coming in, and like what do they know? You know, like if you're the person hiring, you know, what are they doing?
One of the things I found when I've been hiring has been when I'm going through HR and I'm knowing that HR haven't got a clue what I'm talking about technically. So I've got to write my job description. I've got to put in the keywords to balance getting it so that HR have some kind of idea about what I'm talking about, but not making it so generic and so non-technical that I then get a deluge of applicants that are completely inappropriate. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done when you're writing your actual job in the first place to then be put into the HR, or if you're using a recruitment, unless you're going through a specialist recruitment company that understands. And I mean, Marcus, you've got the advantage, you speak the language, so that at least the hiring person can talk to you and say, this is what I'm actually interested in. But when you're going to a generic recruitment and they haven't got a clue, then there's a lot more work needing to be done by the actual hiring person to get it right, to get that balance. So if you don't want it so specific that you don't want to apply, you don't actually get any applications, everyone goes through, nope. But you don't want it so general that you've now got 20,000 CVs that you're going, and I've got to read these.
Yeah, I'm laughing because that's why people hire us, you know, because we filter out all those, you know. So like if Ming called me, he's like, Marcus, I need this engineer, you know, in this location with these skills, you know, I would bring him 5 good candidates that he can that are manageable for him to look at, as opposed to going through thousands. You know, 90% of those candidates are going to be wrong, you know. So so a lot of our clients will post a job, but they also call us because they know that they'll get a high quality candidate. But from the candidate side, though, that's why it's best to go through somebody like me. And I'm not saying it has to be me, but you're going to get your next job through somebody you know typically. Okay, and to get to the hiring manager, excuse me, through the ATS system, we call it a big black hole. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. You submit, you never hear anything, you know, and it just goes somewhere. You don't know what happens with it. So one of the things I was talking to Brandon about earlier is that I say don't completely ditch the ATS, but you have to network through people you know. And Zach, I'm not sure if we talked about that when we talked originally, but like I was talking to a candidate yesterday, and I tell us a lot of candidates, especially coming fresh out of college, contact everybody that you can find at LinkedIn who went to your school first, okay, with your degree, okay, and send the message out to them and see who they can refer you to get some informational interviews going, and get to that get you closest to the person you want to go. Now, the other thing is that you also can do Like if you know Ming's hiring, company's hiring for this engineer, and you find out, you go to LinkedIn, you find this title, send them a message, send in your resume. They don't want to get deluged, but a lot of people won't do that. Everyone else is applying through ATS. And I use the example, my son was looking for a job coming out for internship one year. And he said, I applied for this job. I haven't heard back from him. I said, hey, let's give him a call. And we're literally in the car, just packed up the door and driving back. He called them from the car. They hired him right there because they didn't want to go through all the resumes. So they just hired him right there. So you have to get in front of a person to get past the computer in the best way you can. I'm not sure. What do you think about somebody reaching out to you directly if they have the right skill set?
If they've got the right skill set and I've got an opening, then for me, if someone's actually reached out to me, that ticks on my first box of they've got initiative.
Exactly.
So, because I'm far more interested in what people's attitude than what their knowledge is. Knowledge can be taught. Attitude, that's something that you need to develop. So yeah, if I'm in the process of, if I've got an open position and someone just reaches out directly and their skill set matches, that's a massive tick in the box.
Correct. And that's what a lot of people are missing. But like I said, not everybody's listening to this. So anybody's listening to this, you get the added advantage of like I said, getting that response from me. Because me personally, I get resumes all the time. I can count how many times people call me, literally on one hand, how many people call me to say, hey, Marcus, hey, I see you got this job posting, I think it might be a good fit. What do you think? I always talk to the same people for the same reason Ming does. It's like they're showing initiative. They're doing something that no one else is doing. And that puts them at the top of the heap for me.
Sorry, I threw an ad hoc poll up, and just, the topic of this today is, how to beat an applicant tracking system. Well, the most obvious way is to just not use one at all, right? And so it's funny because we're talking about submitting essentially an application in the blind, right? I mean, let's be honest, that's what you're doing. You've got a wall and you're putting an application, through a hole in the wall and then praying, right? And that's Marcus said that, it seems like it goes into a black hole. And you look at the stats so far, based on the last two polls, there were 26 votes on the first poll. It was like, do you know what an applicant tracking system is? 11 people said yes, 10 people said no, 6 people were unsure, okay? Well, the second question that I just posed was, did your last job come through your own network or through a blind application? Meaning, did you just end up on a website and put your application in? 13 of the 16 responses, 17 of the 16, no, there's somebody beat that too, but 13 responses. So right now, 76% came through their own network. So, I mean, I think that's probably even a little conservative on the percentage of jobs that are coming through our networks, right? You get jobs through people and it may not be your direct, first level connection, but, maybe I know Marcus and Marcus, knows somebody at some company, and I also know Zach. Zach comes through me, and through the network, he ends up getting a job that way. So one of the best, safest things to do may be just to first step. Yeah, I mean, you want to apply to through these systems, but don't sit there and rely on putting things into a black hole, as Marcus called it, and hoping for the best. You got to be a little bit proactive, and as me and Marcus both just said, it looks like you start checking boxes once you start being proactive like that too. Yeah,
I helped a guy, recent grad. Well, he graduated a year and a half ago from college, and he had been applying the whole time. He started applying before he graduated. Wasn't getting any nibbles. I think he had like 1 or 2 interviews in that time period. He applied to one of our jobs, and once we went through, and he actually applied through our ATS. But like I said, we looked for people with the right skills, the right skill sets that we're looking for. So we talked, and actually I got him an interview, but after tweaking his resume, so we had to do some work, like what I did with Zach on tweaking the resume. After we tweaked his resume, he didn't get a job through us, but he got a job within a month. So I want to say it is the network, but you also have to have the right content in your resume and in the right attitude, like Ming was saying. So like one of the things I had him do, he was a black belt in martial arts, so I had him add that to his resume, because that within itself shows so much in terms of discipline. You know what I mean? And I can't think of all the adjectives that go around just what it takes to be a black belt, but people picked up on that. So I got him interviewed. Then he got like 4 other interviews on his own. I'm not sure how to got him, but now he's gainfully employed. So you need both, but you have to spend more time though doing the networking than you do doing the ATS though, I think.
Yeah, so I do want to blast through some of these, Marcus, and then open it up to questions for everybody. So here's some of the points that Marcus shot over to me as things that you should do to beat an ATS. So I don't know if you just want to go down these. One of the key things that Marcus brought up last time was potentially putting keywords in is things like keyword stuffing. Marcus, do you want to talk through a couple of these and then open it up to the rest of the group for questions?
Sure. Let's start with the keyword stuffing, because I'm not sure where Ming falls on that, but the main thing is like, don't have a one-page resume. Okay. You can't tell your story in one page. And I tell people all the time, you have to have at least 2 pages, because that same guy I told you about before, he had a one-pager. He had any of his projects on there. He had a link to his projects, on his website, but nobody goes to it. I can't. And I was trying to tell somebody, Brandon, what's that rule when you say if you got to make them do something else, that they're put up another roadblock? That you said the rule of 10 or something like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So in my world, when you're doing promotions, usually there's a rule that at every step that somebody has to take an action, you only get 10% of people to progress, right? So if you started with 100 people and you send them an email, only 10% of them will get through that to open it. And then after that, if you have to get them to do something, only 10% of those will get through. So, I mean, this is probably that concept on steroids.
Right. Yeah, so people aren't going to go above and beyond to they spend more time weeding people out as opposed to trying to focus on trying to help or find the right person. I think a lot of times, just because they want to get through the list. But I've told people to do if they don't have enough, because the thing is, the way the ATS works. Let me start with that then. So you submit, they parse your resume, they look for keywords, of course. Otherwise, you would have the keywords in there. Okay. And then they look for clusters of keywords. So they want to see the keyword multiple times. So if you're using ThreadX or something, they look for a ThreadX OS developer or something like that. They want to see, you can't just have ThreadX in your skills. You need to show where you use that skill in the body. So a lot of engineers are trying to be efficient with their resume, and like I said, being a one-pager is too efficient. You want to mention things multiple times so that your score is higher. So if you're like going for a Python development job, you want to mention Python a lot so you get scored higher than someone who may only mention it once or twice. Okay, so they're looking. ATS looks for those keywords, clusters of keywords where they're being done, and they score based on the frequency of the keywords that they're looking for. Okay, so I tell people that if they want to keep it to two pages or whatever, and they have more skills that they want to make sure people know about, or you want to make sure people that are looking for skills that are synonymous to those skills. So say somebody's looking for a Yocto person, okay, but you don't have Yocto experience, maybe you have build root experience. You know what I mean? what I do is tell people to have a additional page of keywords that they want the ATS to pick up, because that, but do it in a white font so it's naked to the visible eye. But at least you still get caught up in that conversation of it, get caught in that net of being seen by potential employers in part of the ATS in terms of having the right keywords. But don't put keywords in that you can't defend and you can't speak to, though. So if you don't have VxWorks experience, and don't put it in the body. But if they're looking for RTOS, because not everybody would, like RTOS, for example, you write real-time operating system or you write RTOS, you probably need to have both versions of that, because you're not sure what they're looking for in their keyword search. And it's frustrating for me as a recruiter, because I have to do like all the different versions of RTOS when I'm looking for people. It's RTOS, real-time operating system, real-time one word whole, real-time dash. So there's all kinds of different ways to parse those words out. Okay, for keywords. So that the keywords are very important. Okay. The thing I said before, you have to keep it simple, text only. Your name should be small, because no one cares about your name until they know what you can do. Have all your best stuff up top. Have your skills up top, so they can kind of like they start your skills, then they see, okay, like I see you got these skills. Now where do you use them? Then you show them in the body of the resume where you use those skills. And if you hadn't had those skills professionally, make sure that you mention it in the project so they can see where they use them. That's how, like the other guy that I told was looking for a job for a year and a half, that's how I got him his interviews, because he had his projects in there. And one of his projects was like doing kernel work. And that's what got the hiring manager's attention for the job I got him an interview for.
I wanted to bring up something that's really important about the format of resumes, Marcus. Last time when we went through, reviewing your CVs and making sure that they were, not overly complicated and not flowery. This number 2, the section headings sort of, and number 3, the simple formatting kind of speaks to that. When I can't remember his name, we were looking at it, and there was one version of the resume that was pretty standard, right? And then there was another version that was like super designed, right? How does that play into an ATS? If you have like a multiple column, lots of pictures and stuff versus just your like Times New Roman, standard.
Yeah, so like our ATS, sometimes they'll knock the person can't even get their resume in there because it's not accepting those objects. So that's one reason to keep out pictures and any additional graphics. When you use columns, the ATS gets confused sometimes. They don't put stuff in the right place and they're not sure what to do with it. Okay, so if you have work experience, education, skills, it knows what to do with that. It knows what to do with that. Sometimes it gets tricky on dates of employment, because if you had multiple jobs within the same company, that may confuse it also, depending on how you write the resume. Because I always like people to have umbrella heading for their employment. So they work for IBM from 2005 to 2010, but they had some other jobs in between there. I always like to have the overall heading showing the entire experience, because otherwise, if you have just the dates for each job, it may think you're a job hopper. It may consider it 2 different jobs. So that gets kind of tricky also. So you have to be, but like I said, always do it in mind of it being in front of a human. Okay, so once the resume gets in front of a person, you don't want them to skim it and skim it thinking you're a job hopper. You want them to skim it showing your longevity. And the other thing is, like I always tell people, you don't have to use the title they gave you. I always recommend using functional titles. Okay. But if you're doing a resume per job, use that title, I guess, if that's the title you had. But some people will like a Lockheed or something, they'll say engineer, technician number 2. You know what I mean? And if that's not part of your company culture, you don't know what that means. You know, so you have to say, if you were a software engineer, because I had this happen recently. It's like, what are you doing there? He's like, no, I'm not a technician, I'm a software engineer. It's like, that's the title you have to use. So use functional titles that people will recognize upon first glance. And like I said, upon first glance, because it's a skim, not a read. Did I address all of that? And it wasn't reading through all of Brandon.
No, yeah, I think you did. You know, you keep talking about your ATS. What do you mean when you say your ATS? Like Webster and Webster ATS?
Oh, okay. It was when I say that, because there's so many ATSs out there, and all their functionalities are different. You know, so they all treat resumes differently. So I'm saying our particular version of our ATS, you know, we've had some that get kind of funky in terms of submitting, but you know, there's, you know, if you see in the URL what ATS they're using, are they using Greenhouse, Lever, Workday, you know, ADP? Everybody has their own ATS, and they're all different. I think the only technology probably that a lot of them share is the parsing. That I don't think most people write their own parsing, but they use some kind of parsing engine primarily. But it's like I said, once again, it's different for everybody. So it's different per ATS, how they treat incoming resumes.
Great. Just to give everybody a little bit of a visual. So once somebody submits a resume to you, it goes through an ATS immediately. Is that correct for Webster and Webster?
Right. If you apply online, right.
So let me show everybody, and I want you to explain, Marcus, what's happening on the back end if I go to the Webster and Webster site. So this is the Webster and Webster website here, and then if you go to find a job, you're now taken to a place where there are job listings. Okay, so here are a bunch of job listings, and then you pick one. I want a remote embedded software engineer position. Now this looks good. So what happens at this point? So if I upload a resume right now, and I'm going to take my beautiful other half's resume and see if I can get her a job as an embedded software engineer. Let's see. Where is she? There she is. All right. So now what's happening now? Like what's going on on your side of the world? What's happening here?
Yeah, so it's in terms of like our kind of analytics, we actually take we have different links on different sites so that we can track our own traffic, so that we know where the job came from. Okay, so like yours will show up in our system as a direct to our website apply. Okay, so if you apply on Google for jobs, I think that's a different URL. So we kind of track, so we track where we spend our money on advertising our jobs. So this one will come in as a direct application, and it'll be submitted as a candidate on that particular job that you're on. Thanks for doing this, Brandon. I have not done this in a long time.
Yeah, I was going to say this is the world's best ATS, because I've never seen this before. Let's see.
Like you said, I didn't know that barrier was there. So I did not know that. And then it comes into our system. It shows up as a list of candidates. The team will get an email, saying we had a new person apply for the job, which is nice, because that way we don't have to actually go in the ATS if we see a person, because it comes to my desk with their resume, where they're, whatever information is in there in terms of email address, phone number, location, those kind of things. A lot of times people don't put their location, which is hard for us because we get some things that are geo-specific, but that ends up making a conversation though, or us reaching out to find out where they are. The other thing that was there, Rand, is that the people can just register to be part of our system. So that if we have a job that comes up, they're in our system. You know what I mean? So if they have to do a resume, they can come up and we have, we do reach out to people that have, later on down the road, years wise, they're in our system. So now we can reach out to them again.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important note. And the last comment before we sort of open it up to folks for questions and Marcus is, at a lot of big organizations, we talked about this last time, which is they field their resume farming, right? They have resume farms, right? So they will post jobs, collect massive amounts of resumes and applications, and then store them, right? So this isn't a one-off proposition in a lot of cases. Like with Marcus, right? They have a database full of people who, when a job comes up, they'll look at, hey, who's already in our database that might fit this particular job description. So things like this is why things like the how you deal with keywords within your application or with your application or resume, and the formatting of your resume itself are important, because even if it appears like you're going into a black hole, at some point, if you hear a recruiter or get a message from a recruiter on LinkedIn or via email or something, you might end up, and that might be because you submitted a resume at some point in the past and they're reaching out. So it's important that you make sure that you get it through the ATS.
Right. And what we do, like when we search our database, we do like extensive Boolean search. We get very specific on what we're looking for our searches online and within our database. So it's very granular. So like I say, those keywords are important. So like I said, if I'm doing a RTOS, I'm doing like we're doing right now, like a FAE search for someone with RTOS skills. So not everybody puts RTOS in their resume, but they may mention what RTOS they use. So when we do our searches, we have to put in just like every major RTOS in our search to come up with the results that we want to get. So that's why it's just really important to have the right keywords in there to be seen by somebody like me.
Great. So I do want to open it up for questions, and here we got about 10 minutes left. Thanks, Marcus, for taking us through, what an ATS is and a couple of tips and tricks there for beating them or getting around them, which I think that the key takeaway is probably go to your network first. I mean, would you agree? Go to your network first and try to circumvent the ATS altogether. But any other closing thoughts while some people add questions and discussion points for you?
Yeah, closing thoughts is that you have to be patient, because everybody will have a different opinion about your resume. Okay, I tell people all the time, that you can send your resume to 10 different recruiters and get 10 different responses. Okay, I know that our resume format works, and people get jobs. Like I said, I've already used some really good examples, but you have to stick to keeping it simple and keeping the right keywords in there and telling your story. Because those are the three things. You have to tell your story, keep it simple. And I forgot the third one I said already. But those are the things that, don't get caught up in changing the resume just because everybody else tells you how to do it every time. But keep it simple and focused and have the right keywords and tell your story.
Great. Questions? Anybody have anything that they want to ask Marcus or touch on? Anybody who's right now on the panel who's got their audio and video fired up? Anything here's one from Ming in the chat. Ming says, what would you advise for someone starting out that doesn't have much experience to list and does not have a large network? How do they get going?
First, you got to list your projects. Okay. But before that, well, if you're prepping people for in high school, I mean, I want to start at high school, okay? Because you have to impress upon them the importance of getting internships, okay? It makes a big difference. A lot of people go through school just trying to get through school, then they come out without an internship. I think it's detrimental to their career. It's important to really get those internships, okay? And then once you have those internships and your college projects, you want to make sure those are all on their resume in terms of the projects, and also try to have projects that they do outside of school. You know what I mean? So like the guy you referred to before, he had like his own lab at home. You know what I mean? So whenever somebody tell me to have a lab at home, they raise to the top of my list, okay? Because that means they're curious, that they're doing stuff on their own time, that they're invested in, they enjoy technology, okay? Not that I want somebody who's doing it all the time, but you know that they made an extra effort to do some things, some projects on the side, okay? Or even just, you know, adding some more stuff to their GitHub account. So projects, internships, and then your network has to start with, it starts with high school even, you know, reach out to people you knew in high school that are doing something you're doing, you know, reach out to your parents' friends, reach out to, like I said, people who are graduates. Even, you know, if you want to push it, like reach out to people from the same area, you know, that you grew up in or whatever. I talked to a guy yesterday. He's like, one of the reasons I talked to you because I was born in Ann Arbor, you know, so you never know where these kind of networks come from. So those are things I would recommend me.
Another question here from one of the other streams is, so you want to beat the ATS by going around it, but how do you know who the hiring manager is in the first place? So how do you figure that out? Is there a way of doing that networking?
It depends on the size of the company. So it's easier on the smaller companies because most of the managers are listed on the LinkedIn somewhere. And don't be afraid to go to a VP. You know, they'll push it down if they see the value. But like Ming said, showing that initiative and not being afraid, and remembering that the VP is a person too. They have, you know, wants, desires, needs, fears, just like you do. You know, so if they have if that position is open, that means they have a problem that needs to be solved. You know, if you think you can help them solve that problem, you know, don't be afraid to reach out. But I would try to start with a manager first that you think might be in there. And what thing is worst case scenario is they say, oh, I'm not the manager, Joe, but Joe is. You know what I mean? They may even tell you who that manager is, or just pass it along to that manager.
That's great. Let's see. Question here. What are some tips for landing a remote embedded software role from Lenny?
It really depends. The remote thing depends on a lot of things because it depends if they're doing work in that jurisdiction, if they're set up to do business in that jurisdiction. You know, if you're international, you know, how they're doing that with contracts. So it really depends on geo a lot of times in terms of remote. Like we have some clients that will hire remote, but they only hire in certain states because they're set up in those states for tax purpose and that kind of stuff. It may not matter if you're doing a contract, but it does for full-time employment because not everybody wants to ramp up in every state and deal with the paperwork of those kind of things. So, but the rule is still true is that you just want to reach out to as many people as you can, and don't be afraid to go beyond ATS for a job you really want, for a company you really want. Like Google, you know, they play by their own rules. You know what I mean? The FANG companies, they have their own rules. It's really hard to do that. But there are plenty of small companies, you know, 20-person companies, 100-person companies, 200-person companies, 500-person companies, that it's a lot easier to do it with. Okay.
It's funny, Zach and Ming's, I believe this was the response to that question, was have a lab and have good experience. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to get a remote job if you have a good experience. But I do think it's yeah, so Ming is pointing out this is something that's very important, and I know this isn't an easy hill to climb because Ming has a boatload of experience. But what Marcus points out is super true. So, for example, with our company, even it's like if we have people in different states, all of the tax implications and the paperwork and the accounting and all of that stuff is such a pain that I just don't want to deal with it. Right. And that's the same thing for any other organization. So the way that you get yourself hired remotely is you have enough, like Ming, for example, you have enough experience and are specialized enough that you're in demand that they will deal with those hurdles in order to bring you in. So I know that's not really a quick fix. I don't know, Ming, how long it took you to get to the amount of experience you have to get to that point, but yeah, I mean, I think it's really, keep building up your skills and make sure that you have something that's marketable and desirable.
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't really matter with contract though. Are you doing contract or you doing full?
Contract and consultancy both.
Okay,
but I have my own company, which therefore completely gets rid of the hassles of I just bill the client.
Right. So they're sending a check to your company, not you.
Yeah.
Directly. Yeah.
So they don't need to worry about any of the international paperwork.
Right.
It's just business to business.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I mean by contract or consultancy. Yeah, it has to be direct. Typically, like you said, it's better to do it as a company, and plus you get all the business advantages if you do it as a company.
So do you do matchmaking like that at Webster & Webster? Because Ming, you don't have any other. Your company is you, and then I think maybe one of your immediate relatives doing like administrative stuff. There's nobody else who works in your consultant. Okay.
In the consultant, it is just me.
Okay. So, Marcus, do you do matchmaking like that? I mean, because Ming in that case is both a person and an entity, right? Or technically two things. Like, do you help put consultants like Ming who have their own business in touch with organizations?
We haven't. With the contracts we've typically done. They usually are like in Germany, because they have to have some kind of contract because they don't have an entity in Germany. We set up a contract. We just do it just like a regular employee. So those are the only ones we really do that aren't actually full-time employees. If they're on some kind of contractual basis, and we work on a fee based on the annual income of that person.
It might be. I mean, it's a weird talk about getting around ATSs and getting around the whole process. I mean, would it be advisable if you're working somewhere to spin up an LLC to make it a little bit easier to have that type of engagement? I mean, starting a business, depending where you are, is not necessarily that hard, right? It doesn't take that much money and that much effort.
Well, I'm a little biased on that because I believe everybody should have a business. Because that's the only way you're going to save money on taxes. You know what I mean? So if you're employed, I tell people you should have a business on the side doing something because you get the tax benefits. So yeah, I'm always in favor of somebody having a business that they can run things through.
Would it make it a little bit easier in this case? I mean, I think that was the takeaway I got from you, Ming. Correct me if I'm wrong, which is basically you haven't, in the US, the equivalent of an LLC, right? It's like, okay, well, if I have an LLC, if I go to Marcus and say, hey, Marcus, I have an LLC, this might make it easier for me to land remote work essentially anywhere because now I'm just a vendor, not an employee.
You've still got there is the logistical hassle. So that's the hurdle you have to cross so my clients have got to send me physical kit. So I've got to be good enough for them to want to bother with the hassle of going down to FedEx and shipping me kit.
For sure.
But yeah, having a business, however, just removes so much of the bureaucracy. Well, the bureaucracy for them. The bureaucracy for my wife, different matter entirely.
For sure. Any other closing thoughts? Any questions? Anybody? Oh, it looks like Taha has a question. Go for it, Taha.
Yeah, I just want to ask if there is an ATS simulator where I can put my resume and check the results of the automation, and maybe it can give me a score or give me a suggestion how to improve my resume for a certain kind of job.
Yeah, there's a bunch of free ones. I was looking at JobScan last night, and they have a free, but it's like it's only you think you can only use it twice uh, for the free version, but they have a one with a monthly fee. But if you're looking for a job, it's kind of it's like $49 a month, or something like that for for that. But they can score it. But so I would try multiple uh, sources just to see what kind of score you get in terms of ATS. Um, but the I heard that on theirs they kind of overcorrect on some of the keywords. It's I liken it to kind of like some engineers. I'll send them a job description. If there's one thing on there that they can't do, is like, I'm not a right fit. Okay. And that's not the right answer. You're close enough. So you got to make sure that they're not, dinging you on stuff that is still something that makes you attractive to somebody else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Good question.
Cool. Well, we're almost out of time here. I put the JobScan link up in the chat. Also, remember, check out Webster and Webster. They got a lot of good, solid technical positions open. If you go to their website and then you scan to the Find a Job section, so check that out for sure. And before we sign off, Zach has an engineering hour coming up on Sunday. Zach, do you want to tell everybody what that's going to be about?
Hey everyone. So on Sunday, we're going to be doing the introduction to our FreeRTOS with AI application, or rather AI with FreeRTOS application. So on Sunday, we're going to look at the application from a very high level. We're going to look at how we break it down into FreeRTOS, and we're going to start looking at breaking it down and setting up so that the next time we're meeting, we're walking straight into code and breaking things down that are very detailed and step by step. But yeah. So AI with FreeRTOS this weekend. Amazing.
For sure. So I'm going to drop I dropped a link to where you can sign up to that in the chat here in the tool. So if you registered for this event, you can go to the same place and register for that event. And then most importantly, reach out to Marcus. He put his contact information in the chat as well. It's just Marcus@websterandwebster.com. So Marcus@websterandwebster.com. I mean, he's been amazing. Like Zach mentioned, he's happy to have a conversation with you. He's happy to provide some help and lend a hand. So make use of the resources, grow your network. All of us are here to help you guys out. You can find us in the server, discord.gg/devheads. I don't want to toot our own horn, but between the 8 people who are on the screen right now, we know literally thousands of people in the industry. So, if you need help, if you're looking for a referral or, to get in touch with somebody at a company, there's a good chance that we may not know the exact person, but we probably know somebody who knows somebody. So make use of your network. And other than that,
Yeah,
I think
skip the ATS and email me directly. Okay.
That's right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks so much, Marcus. It's always great to talk to you and get your advice and pointers on things. And if you have any questions, like I said, hit up Marcus at Marcus@websterandwebster.com. See us in the DevHeads server, and have a great weekend. I guess we'll see you guys all on Sunday for the engineering hour.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.